All right. Oh, okay. All righty. Listen, that ESPN's 30 for 30. However, it is my 98 for 98. The 98 seasons in the history of the New York Football Giants. And I'm trying to get it done in 98 days. Probably not going to happen. But however, I do want to get it done before September 10th, which is the beginning of the football season. And I should be able to get it done before September 10th. So we're almost out of the 50s. The next show I do will be starting this the 60s. Still got a long way to go. But the 1959 season, 35th season in the history of the New York Football Giants. 35th season in history of the Giants, 40th season in the history of the NFL. NFL started in 1920. New York Giants came around in 1925. So the Giants are 5 years younger than the NFL. Now, the Giants in 1958, went to the championship game. Great season for the Giants. They would finish they finished 10-3 because they had a playoff game. They were 9-3, but they were forced to play a playoff game in 1958 because they were the Giants and the Browns were both tied at 9-3 at the end of the regular 58 season. So the Giants won the playoff game to see who would go to the championship game. So the Giants at the end of the regular season were 10-3. This year they got even better. This year they were 10-2. They didn't need a playoff game to see who went to the championship game. Once again, they went back to the championship game, and once again they played the Baltimore Colts in the championship game. And sadly, once again, the outcome was the same. The Colts would prevail once again. However, the Giants, were 10-2. Their defense got even better. The defense in 1958 gave up 15 points a game. They were number one in the NFL at 15 points a game. Well, in 1959, they were once again number one. They gave up 14 points a game, so they got even better. They scored. They were number two as far as scoring. They scored 284 points in 12 games, which was 23.7 points per game, which back then was pretty good. The only problem is that the team that was number one was the Baltimore Colts, and they averaged over 30 points a game. I mean, back in 1959, you were averaging over 30 points a game. They averaged 31.8 points a game. So basically, they averaged like 32 points a game. So, 32 points a game back in 1959 is a lot of points. They scored 381 points, the Baltimore Colts did, in 12 games. A lot of points. They put up over 50 points two times. Let's see, what did they do here? They scored over 30 points. Was it three times? They scored over 30 points three times. They scored over 40 points once, and they scored over 50 points two times. They beat the Bears 51-38. They beat the Packers 56-0. This is 1959. So that this was the Vince Lombardi was the Giants offensive coordinator in 1958. So in 1959, he left and started coaching the Packers in 1959. He did a very good job in 59. The Packers wound up they had won it with a winning record. So he did a very good job for him. Unfortunately, the Colts beat him 56-0 in one of the games, but the Colts scored a ton of points. And, we're going to get to the championship game, but, the Giants lost. The game was, the Giants were winning going in the fourth quarter. And about 2, 3, 4 minutes or so into the fourth quarter, the Giants were winning the championship game. So with like 11, 12 minutes to go in the game, the Giants were winning. Unfortunately, it all unraveled. It was kind of like in this 59 championship game, the Colts scored 24 points in the final quarter, 24 unanswered points to go ahead and, basically blow the doors off the Giants in the game. It was a lot like the 1934 championship game. The Giants were losing 13-3 going into the fourth quarter. Well, the Giants scored 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. They scored 27 points in the fourth quarter of the 1934 championship game to win 30-13. Well, it's kind of something like this. The Giants were winning 9-7 going into the fourth quarter. And we're gonna go over a little more extensively in a couple of minutes here, but the Giants were winning 9-7. A couple minutes into the fourth quarter, and the Colts, the avalanche started, and the Colts scored 24 points, and before you know it, they were up 31-9. The Giants scored a touchdown with like 30 seconds to go in the game, but it was too late, baby. Now it's too late. But I mean, the Giants had a very, very good season. Their defense, did a very good job. They only gave up 6 rushing touchdowns all year. They gave up 3.3 yards per carry. Really, they did a very good job. They didn't give up many touches. What is it? They only gave up 11 passing touchdowns all year long. They got 22 interceptions for the defense. I mean, they did a very, very good job. They gave up 22 touchdowns all year in 12 games, so not even 2 touchdowns a game. But also, out of the 22 touchdowns they gave up, one was a fumble recovery. Guy ran it back for a touchdown. And they gave up 4 punt returns for touchdowns. So out of the 22 touchdowns that the Giants gave up, like 4 of them were on special teams, and 1 was a fumble recovery for a touchdown. So basically, the Giants defense only gave up 17 touchdowns in 12 games. They didn't give up a touchdown and a half. Per game. So they did a very good job. Pat Summerall did a really good job of kicking. He was 20 out of 29, which back then was really good. It was 69%. He was 30 on 30 on extra points. We traded for him in 1958. He was paying off big time for the Giants. He was a very, very good kicker for the Giants, going 20 out of 29. The Giants' opponents only kicked 6 field goals all year. There were 6 out of 16 kicking field goals against the Giants. The Giants punter, Don Chandler, 46.6 yard average punting the ball. He was a very good punter for the Giants. I said they had a very good defense. They don't keep track of sacks here, unfortunately, because sacks weren't obviously a statistic until, was 1982. It had to be 82 because Lawrence Taylor came in 81 and the sacks still weren't a statistic then. But I mean, Charlie Connolly had a good year. He threw, he threw 14 touchdown passes, only threw 4 interceptions. Giants threw 18 touchdown passes. The team only had 13 interceptions, which is pretty good back then. But let's start off here the 1959 NFL season. Once again, with the Giants and the Browns, it was kind of going neck and neck, and the Browns kind of fell apart toward the end down there. But it was very, very close. It was a close race. Let's see, and the Colts wound up 9-3, but the race was over with pretty much by because the Colts. Let's see here. The Colts won their last 5 games. They were 4-3. So then they wound up winning their final 5 games, and they wound up with a record of 9-3. The Chicago Bears wound up a record of 8-4. So the Bears wound up 1 game behind. Let's see here now with the Giants went up 10-2. The Eagles and the Browns are both 7-5, so they were a couple games back. But with the after 8 weeks, the Browns and the Giants were both tied at 6-2. The Browns fell apart. I think the last 3 games the Browns lost. Oh, I'm sorry. The Browns lost 3 of their final 4 games. So the Giants and the Browns were, after 8 weeks, were both tied at 6-2. The Browns would go on to lose. So the Giants would win their final 4 games to finish 10-2. Well, the Browns would lose 3 out of their next 4. So after the Browns were 6-2, they would lose their next 3. And then they were 6-5, and basically it was all over with then. The Giants beat them too. The Giants beat them 48-7 and 10-6. So the Giants played the Browns twice during the regular season and beat them both times. But the Browns fell apart. But I mean, after 8 weeks, they were tied with the Giants. They just lost it at the end here. So we'll go to 1959 NFL season. Was the 40th regular season in the history of the National Football League. 40th regular season for the NFL, 35th season for the history of the New York Giants. Tragedy struck on October 11th as NFL Commissioner Bert Bell suffered a fatal heart attack at Philadelphia's Franklin Field while watching the Eagles and the Pittsburgh Steelers. He died at age 65 at the nearby University Hospital. League Treasurer Austin Gunsel was named interim commissioner for the rest of the season. The Chicago Cardinals played their final season in Chicago. Then they moved to St. Louis, where they became the St. Louis Cardinals. Before relocating for the following season. In the NFL championship game on December 27th, the Baltimore Colts defeated the New York Giants for the second season in a row, 31-16. The draft, the 1959 NFL draft was held on December 1st, 1958, and on January 21st, 1959, at Philadelphia's Warwick Hotel. With the first pick, the Green Bay Packers selected quarterback Randy Duncan from the University of Iowa. Whew, bad pick that was. Conference races. The NFL had 6 teams in each conference. Each played a home and away game against the other 5 conference teams and 2 games in the other conference. The Bears and the Cardinals and the Redskins and the Colts faced each other in an interconference game each year as they were close geographic rivals. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. After the second week, when the 1-1 Giants had to share the Eastern Conference lead with all 5 of the other clubs. So basically, all 6 teams are tied at 1-1 after week 2. Every team had 1 win and every team had a loss. The Giants would win 7 of the next 8 games to clinch the NFL title in week 10. So with 2 weeks left to go, the Giants had clinched their division. In the Western Conference, the San Francisco 49ers, who had come close in 1952, 53, 54, and 57 several times since joining the NFL, were 6-1 and had a 2-game lead over their closest rival, the 4-3 Colts. However, in Week 9, although the 49ers lost to Baltimore 45-14 on November 22nd, and they shared the lead at 6-3, 2 weeks later, San Francisco had the home field advantage when they faced the Colts for a rematch. Baltimore won again 34-14 and clinched the title the following week. So the 49ers had a chance. 49ers had a lead. I mean, 49ers, 1, 2, almost every, yeah. 49ers had a lead of their Western Conference up until like week 10, and then the final 2 weeks the Colts won it. Colts pulled away. So I said the Colts wound up winning. They were 9-3. The Bears were 8-4, and the 49ers wound up 7-5. The most valuable player went to Johnny Unitas, the quarterback of the Baltimore Colts, and the coach of the year went to Vince Lombardi. They wound up 7-5. The year before, I think they won 1 or 2 games in 1958, and he took them from like a 2-win team. And let me see, what were they? I can figure this out here. I think. Yep, there we go. 1958. What did they win? They were 110-1. So he took them from a team that was 110-1 and made them 7-5 in 1 year. Simply remarkable. And he was with the Giants, and the Giants, I don't want to go into it. That's another story for another day. But let's see. Yeah, they said the NFL, the championship game was held in Baltimore. The year before it was held in the Yankee Stadium, where the Giants were the host. So we'll go over that in a moment here. But the NFL draft here. The 1959 NFL draft had its first 4 rounds held on December 1st, 1958, and its final 26 rounds. Once again, 30 rounds in the NFL draft. 30. And it had 26 rounds on one day. Holy cow. Both sessions were held at the Warwick Hotel in Philadelphia. With the first overall pick draft, the Green Bay Packers selected Randy Duncan. I mean, my goodness. Let's say the first round here, the Giants took Lee Groscup, a quarterback from Utah. Round 2, the Giants took Buddy Dial, an end from Rice. Round 3, the Giants took Joe Morrison, a back from Cincinnati. And, of course, Joe Morrison's number is retired because he played for the Giants. He played like 5 different positions for the Giants on offense. He played with the Giants from 1959 to I think it was 72. I believe it was 72 or 73 was his final season. So round 4, the Giants did not have a pick. Round 5, the Giants selected Ellison Kelly, a guard from Michigan State. Let's see, round 6, the Giants didn't have a pick. I'll just go over the top 10 picks here. Round 7, once again, the Giants did not have a pick. How about round 8? Wow. Okay, round 9, the Giants took Jack Delvo, a back from Illinois. Another bad pick. And then in round 10, the Giants took Bob Pepe, an end from North Carolina State. I mean, the Giants, did not have banner drafts here. Let me tell you that much. I'm just going overall. I don't really see anybody really. Well, they took Joe Morrison. Okay, So basically, Joe Morrison was a real good pick for them. He, as I said, he wound up with getting his number retired by the Giants, basically because he was on the team for so long. He played in 5 different offensive positions for him, and so he was a special player. But if we got, let's see here, let's go over to Giants here. The Giants go over their games here. All right, once again, as always, as the Giants always do, the sharing. It's up today. New series 45, 49ers games in 99 days next year. We got that next year, though. All-time records 21-21. That's no ties. Giants versus the 49ers. At this stage, the Giants have only 1 loss to the 49ers after 3 games. Oh, cool. I like that. Unfortunately, things have turned a little bit since then. The Atlanta Falcons and Saints expansion teams delayed the Bengals 1 year. Yep, the Falcons were 66. The Saints were 67. The Bengals were 68. Yeah. Yep. All right, so the Giants, once again, sharing the Yankee Stadium with obviously the New York Yankees. The Giants played from 1925 up until right now. Every year they always played their first 2 to 4 games always on the road. They never started off at home. And this year was no exception. They played their first 3 games on the road. Basically, pretty much, I'm assuming because they're sharing the field with the Yankees, instead of the Giants going in there and chewing up the field, they want to make sure the baseball season was over with, including any possibility of the World Series. So the Giants' first home game was not until October 18th, when the World Series, the baseball season, everything was all over with. So the Giants can go in Yankee Stadium and chew up the field, and it wouldn't harm any the baseball. And the Yankees. So the first 3 games of the season for the Giants were all on the road. First game of the season was September 26th, Saturday, against the Rams. They opened up on Saturday, and they would win 23-21. The following week, on Sunday, October 4th, in Philadelphia, they would lose 49-21. Basically, I mean, they gave up almost 50 points, and all year long, what did they give up here? They gave up 170 points. So basically, after the Eagle game, the other 11 games, the Giants gave up like 120 points, pretty much. So they gave up like 11 points a game for the rest of the season, other than this one Eagle game. So their defense was very, very good. Now, they gave up 31 points in the championship game, but that necessarily wasn't their defense's fault. We'll go over that in a couple minutes here. Week 3, on Sunday, October 11th, in Cleveland, the Giants would win 10-6. Once again, they would beat their biggest rival, the Cleveland Browns, which wound up being very important. Their first home game of the season, Sunday, October 18th, against the Eagles. The Giants would now win 24-7. 2 weeks before that, the Giants gave up 49 points to the Eagles. Now, here is 2 weeks later at home at Yankee Stadium, the Giants would win 24-7. The following week, the Giants won on the road again against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So on Sunday, October 25th, in Pittsburgh, the Giants would win 21-16. So now the Giants were 4-1 after 5 weeks, and 4 of their first 5 games were on the road. So now they 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 of their final 7 games were at home. So the Giants are sitting pretty. They're 4-1 after 5 games. They got 5 of their final 7 games at home. Things are looking good for them. So the next week, Sunday, November 1st, at home, they played the Green Bay Packers, and they would win 20-3. Then Sunday, November 8th, the following week, at home, they would play the Chicago Cardinals, and they would win a close one, 9-3. The following week, they would be their second loss of the season, second and final loss of the regular season. They were at home. They would lose on Sunday, November 15th to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They would lose 14-9. So now the Giants are 6-2. The Cleveland Browns would be 6-2 as well. So now after 8 weeks, both teams are tied. And it looks like it's going to be a race to the finish. However, the Browns would lose their next 3 games and just completely knock themselves out of any contention by losing their next 3 games. The Giants would just keep winning. The following week, Sunday, November 29th, at home, the Giants would beat the Redskins 45-14. I'm sorry, I missed a week here. The Giants were 6-2. The Giants will win their final 4 games. They would go on the road, and they would play the Chicago Cardinals on Sunday, November 22nd. They would win 30-20. So now the Giants are 7-2. The Browns lost, so they were 6-3. The following week, at home against the Washington Redskins on Sunday, November 29th, the Giants would win 45-14. So now the Giants are 8-2. Cleveland Browns lost again, so now the Cleveland Browns are 6-4. So now there's 2 games left to go, and the Giants have a 2-game lead over Cleveland Browns. Now the final game of the season, or the next game of the season, was against the Cleveland Browns. So if the Cleveland Browns could beat the Giants, Cleveland would be only 1 game behind the Giants with 1 game left to go in the season, and they would still have a chance. However, that never came to fruition because on Sunday, December 6th, in Yankee Stadium, the Giants would annihilate the Browns 48-7, and therefore the Giants would be 9-2 and win the division, and the Browns would suffer their 3rd loss in a row. So at that point, the Browns would be 6-5 out of it, and the Giants would win the division. So now the Giants are 9-2. The final game of the season on the road in Washington on Sunday, December 13th, the Giants would beat the Redskins 24-10 to finish their season at 10-2. Giants, a very, very good season. Really good. They scored a lot of points. As I said, they were second in the NFL scoring points at 23.7. 23.7. I mean, the Giants were not like usually an offensive juggernaut, and they certainly were not, this particular season, but they would run the ball a lot, so they didn't really pass the ball. So to score 24 points a game with running the ball a lot, it was pretty good. I mean, Frank Gifford ran the ball, Mel Triplett, Alex Webster, Phil King, and Joe Morrison were, all heavy contributors as running. I mean, Joe Morrison ran the ball 62 times. Doesn't sound like a lot, but if you consider they had like 5 guys that pretty much shared everything. Joe Morrison ran the ball 62 times. Phil King ran the ball 72 times. Alex Webster ran the ball 79 times. Mel Triplett ran the ball 91 times, and Frank Gifford ran the ball 106 times. So they had 5 guys that all ran the ball at least 62 times. So they really shared the workload. I mean, they only averaged 3.8 yards a carry, but they had 137 yards a game rushing the ball. They only gave up 105 yards a game running the ball. So the run defense was very good. And as I said, their running offense was decent enough. I said their passing was pretty good. They passed for 2,633 yards. They only gave up 1,811 yards. So their defense was very, very good. 1958 and 59, the Giants defense was really, really good. They took a step back a little bit in 1960. But this would also be the next to last season for the coaching of Jim Lee Howell. He would coach in 1960, and that would be his final season. So this is his second to last season. However, he's had a nice run at it because he started in 1954 coaching the Giants. So from 1954 to 1960, Jim Lee Howell took the Giants to 3 championship games. So, he had a very successful coaching career. They won, and they would wind up winning 1 championship in 1956. So the 1959 NFL championship game, was held obviously in Baltimore. And, the Giants hosted the game the year before. Remember, the Eastern Division or the Eastern Conference hosted the even-yeared championship game. So this was an odd-numbered championship, or odd-numbered year. So the odd-numbered year, the Western Division or Western Conference hosted the championship. And this is the only championship game hosted in Baltimore. The only NFL championship game hosted in Baltimore, because the Baltimore Colts went to 4 NFL championship games. 58 was held in New York. They went to 59, which was in Baltimore. 1964, the championship game was held in Cleveland. And the 1968 championship game, once again, was held in Cleveland. So the Baltimore Colts went to 4 NFL championship games, and this was the only one that was ever hosted in Baltimore. In 1970, the Baltimore Colts hosted the championship game, but it was the AFC championship game because that was the year the AFL and the NFL merged, was 1970. So they hosted a championship game in 1970 with the two leagues merging, but it was the AFC, the American Football Conference, as it is today. So this is the only NFL championship game hosted in Baltimore. The 1959 NFL championship game was the 27th NFL championship game, which started in 1933. Played on December 27th at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore. It was a rematch of the 1958 championship game that went into overtime. The defending champion Baltimore Colts, 9-3, again won the Western Conference, while the New York Giants were 10-2, repeated as Eastern Conference champions. The Colts were favored to repeat as champions by 3.5 points. This game also went down to the last quarter, but the Colts did not need any heroics in overtime. We'll go over this in a little bit here. Trailing 9-7 to start the fourth quarter, Baltimore scored 24 straight points and won 31-16. This was the only NFL championship game played in Baltimore. Yeah, so that's some interesting things going on here. One of it was, I think it was like the second quarter. I mean, the Colts were up 7-3. They had the ball down, I'm going to say like the Giants' 22-yard line. It was 4th down and 8, and they went for it. They didn't make it. I mean, I don't know why they didn't try to kick a 29-yard field goal. Their field goal kicker was not very good, but I don't know why they didn't try to kick a 29-yard field goal. It was 4th and 8 from the Giants' 22 or 23-yard line, and they went for it. I think Johnny Unitas got sacked. Another thing happened early on. I think it was just before the Giants scored. That was just before Pat Summerall kicked the first field goal of the game for the Giants. The Giants had the ball deep in Baltimore territory, around like the 10-yard line and 10 or 15-yard line. Charlie Connolly dropped back to pass. He threw the ball in the end zone to one of the Giants' best receivers, Kyle Rote. Well, the ball was overthrown. I think Kyle Rote didn't come down with it, but unfortunately, Kyle Rote kind of was going for the ball. He collided with, I believe it was Johnny Sample of the Baltimore Colts, one of their defensive backs, and kind of knocked Kyle Rote senseless. So Kyle Rote was helped off the field, and so that the Giants were down. He didn't come back until like midway through the fourth quarter, I think it was. So the Giants, one of the best Giants offensive weapons, was pretty much out the whole game. So the Giants lost his services. Giants lost one of the best, receivers for pretty much the entire game. So that really hurt the Giants. The Colts scored first on a Lenny Moore 60-yard touchdown pass from Johnny Unitas. Now, that was basically one of the first plays the Colts had. So within their first drive, they scored on a 60-yard play. So it was like, I don't know, maybe their second play or third play from scrimmage. Lenny Moore was 60 yards for a touchdown pass, 7-0. So basically, almost the whole first quarter, the whole second quarter, and the whole third quarter, the Giants held the Colts to nothing after they scored that one touchdown. Held them to absolutely nothing. They missed a field goal. They went for it on 4th down and 8 deep in the Giants territory. But, I mean, they didn't score. So the Giants defense did a very, very good job. The Giants scored a field goal in the first quarter. They kicked the field goal in the second quarter, and they kicked the field goal in the third quarter. So now the Giants were winning 9-7 going into the fourth quarter. Now the big turning play of the game, so to speak, the Giants had the ball. It was around like the 35-yard line or so of the Colts. It was 4th down and 1. The Giants, instead of trying a long field goal, the Giants decided to go for it. They handed the ball off to Alex Webster. He crashed into the line. He didn't get it. He didn't gain nothing at all. So unfortunately, the Giants came up short, gave the Colts the ball. Well, pretty much right after that, the fourth quarter started. So the Colts had the ball around the 30 or their own 35-yard line. The Giants were winning 9-7. Well, the Colts marched down the field and scored a touchdown to go up 14-9. But when they scored that touchdown, there was a couple minutes had gone by in the fourth quarter. So, a couple minutes into the fourth quarter, the Giants were winning this game 9-7. Just prior to this, they had the ball in Colts territory, and they could have. And if they had made that first down on 4th and a foot, maybe they kick another field goal and then go into the leading 12-7, or maybe they keep the drive going. Maybe they score a touchdown. Who knows? But they went for it on 4th down and 1 and came up a little bit short. 4th and a foot. They came up just a little bit short. So unfortunately, that was pretty much the turning point in the game. So the Colts get the ball in the beginning fourth quarter. They took a few plays, marched down, they scored a touchdown. So now they're up 14-9. Well, then three consecutive interceptions by Charlie Connolly basically just sealed the doom for the Giants. The first one was picked off. The Colts ran it back to like around the 15-yard line, I think it was. Johnny Unitas, I think that it was Johnny Unitas or Jerry Richardson, caught a 12-yard pass from Johnny Unitas. So a few plays later, the Colts scored, but that was almost directly off from an interception. If the Giants had punted the ball and the Colts had to move 60, 70 yards, maybe they don't score a touchdown. But the interception, they picked it off, ran it back deep in the Giants territory. A couple plays later, Colts scored a touchdown. Giants get the ball back, and now they're down. They're down 21-9. So they're down 2 touchdowns. So they have to. Now they got to start. This fourth quarter, down by 2 touchdowns. They got to start doing something. So once again, they start throwing the ball again. They're basically disregarding the run. So Charlie kind of goes back to pass, throws a pass down the sideline. Johnny Sample snaps in front of it, runs it back. Was it 42 yards for a touchdown? Now it's 28-9. Giants get the ball back again, once again. Throw another interception. I think this time was Johnny Sample once again. I think picked the pass off once again, runs the ball down into the Giants territory, and the Colts kick a field goal. So 3 interceptions in the fourth quarter just doomed the Giants. Just doomed them. Totally doomed them. The Giants finally got their only touchdown of the game with about 30 seconds left to go in the game. Bob Schnelker caught a 32-yard touchdown pass from Charlie Connolly to make it 31-16 to make it look somewhat, but I mean it was 31-9 there with about 30 seconds to go until the Giants finally got on the board. But it was the Giants were winning going into the fourth quarter. They lost 31-16. It was 31-9 point, but the Giants were winning 9-7. And I said, the Giants went for it on 4th down and like a foot from like the Colts 35-yard line instead of trying a long field goal. So they handed the ball to Alex Webster. He crashed into the line, didn't gain. He might even have lost a little bit. So the Colts got the ball, and basically that might have been the end of the third quarter. So the Colts got the ball and their own 30, 35-yard line, and a few plays later they scored a touchdown, and then 3 basically back-to-back interceptions by Charlie Connolly doomed the Giants. I mean, the Colts won. They were a better team. They deserved to win, all that stuff. But, it was 31-16, but it was a little closer than the score indicated. But once again, unfortunately, as it was, Giants just came up a little bit short. In 1958 championship game, they, if one or two things went the Giants' way, maybe the Giants win the 58 championship game. 1959, the fourth quarter just doomed the Giants. They were on even par with them the whole game. Once the fourth quarter is what it is. But so I mean, all in all, it was once again another exciting season for the Giants. They finished 10-2, their first place in the Eastern Conference, as they called it. Went back to the championship game, came up just a little bit short. In 1960, the Giants would take a little step back. The Eagles wound up winning. They were like a flash in the pan in 1960. The Eagles had one good season, and they just disappeared pretty much the next 20 seasons, basically. But the Giants took a step back. Frank Gifford would get injured big time in 1960. We'll talk about that more next video. He would miss the whole 1961 season because he got injured that badly. So the Giants, no championship game in 1960. However, the Giants would be in the 1961, 1962, and 1963 championship game. So that pretty much wraps up another successful season for the New York Giants. And I'll be back again tomorrow with the 1960 season of the New York Giants, which just happened to be the 36th season in the history of the New York Giants. I'll see you then.